My name is Stellin. I'm Vice President of Trends and Research at the Intelligence Group. What we do is trend forecasting, market research, and consumer insights, helping companies such as Target, Microsoft, Xbox, PlayStation 2, Revlon, L'Oreal, Warner Music Group understand what's driving consumers both from a macro and micro level. What we do is essentially provide the eyes and ears of consumers for Fortune 500 companies. So we do market research. We tend to do it in a little bit more of a non-traditional fashion because our focus has always been on the Gen X and Gen Y consumer. That's a group that is a little bit more suspect of corporate America, of being sold to, of marketing and advertising. So we try to do research in a way that feels a little bit more natural to them, a little less sterile than a traditional focus group facility. Whenever possible, we do it in a hotel suite, the back room of a restaurant, a cafe or a coffee shop, to make it feel like it's a more natural conversation rather than research, studying what they do and what they like. We publish a syndicated lifestyle study called the Cassandra Report, which is a qualitative and quantitative look at 14 to 34-year-olds, everything from attitudinal shifts, how they're feeling, macro trends, to favorite activities to do, the newest thing that they and their friends are doing, brand preferences, everything from favorite denim brand to favorite music artist to favorite new music artist. It's a little bit of both. So we do primary research for clients, which is very brand specific. So Microsoft Xbox might want to be looking at how people are interacting with video games. What are their demands when it comes to video games? What do they like? What don't they like? What are other categories of entertainment doing well that could be borrowed for video games? What role does playing video games play in their life? And then we have the more general research, which we do primarily for the Cassandra Report, that really just looks at overarching trends across the categories, because we do have so many different kinds of clients who subscribe to the report. We really try to look at, I would say, the more macro trends that apply across categories. First of all, I would say that Gen X and Gen Y are cohort groups. So once you're a part of that group, you're always a part of that group, similar to boomers. There's a lot of confusion as to where one generation begins and the other ends, because it's the first time that the generations have been marked by 10-year periods versus 20-year periods. And there wasn't a societal event like a depression or a war to mark the beginning and end of each generation. For Gen X, for our purposes, and again, you'll see different people define them differently, we look at 29 to 39-year-olds as being Gen X, which then would put Gen Y at 18 to 28. That leaves that window between the 14 to 18-year-olds open without sort of a group, without a generation. So a lot of people have scooped up the 14 to 18-year-olds into Gen Y as well. We're often asked whether or not music plays as important of a role for Generation X and Generation Y as it has for previous generations, because people look at falling record sales, declining attendance at concerts, and start to get a little bit panicked. What we see is that music is more than ever an important part of this generation, both from the consumer aspect of listening to both established artists and up-and-coming artists. This generation sees music as also being something that's very much about self-expression. So they don't just download a song that they like. They might create mashups using different songs. They might produce their own album using Pro Tools and other more kind of at-home consumer software programs. For them, it's really such an important part of just expressing who they are and their moods. I think another problem within the entertainment industry, or rather an opportunity for music, is that across the board in entertainment, you have things that are so high concept that whether it's movies or TV shows, for the most part, people there is a sense that people can't relate to them as much, that romantic comedies are less about a relationship and more sort of about the high concept that can be sold, which makes music an even more important part to this generation, because it is the area where they still feel like they can relate to the emotional aspect of it, especially among the younger generations. Being a teen is such an emotionally charged time, and there isn't a lot in entertainment that really speaks to that, which makes music an even more important part of their life. This is a generation that really places so much importance on careers in general that for Gen Y, they're the first generation to not look at the previous generation, meaning Xers, and think, boy, those guys had it made. Instead, they think, I don't want to be 28, laid off from my job, sleeping on my mom's couch, borrowing my dad's car, unable to commit to my girlfriend. What that means is that it puts a lot of pressure on them to have their life set at a young age. And careers and knowing what they want to do is something that is a big part of that. At the same time, boomer parents have placed a lot of importance on being passionate about what you do. And in some ways, that's a little bit of a double-edged sword. It's hard to know what you're passionate about at 40. It's really hard to know what you're passionate about at 15. As a result, when you see those two trends kind of merge, we see people having so much more of an interest in creative careers, something that they feel they can be successful at. They can have a nice lifestyle. They can support their expensive consumer taste, but at the same time, it's something that they're passionate about. So in terms of recruiting great talent to the music industry, this is such a great time for them because music is something young people are so passionate about. Absolutely. I do think that people are interested in being in the music business, and I think it is up to the music industry to really show people behind the scenes. And now we are seeing that it's the behind the scenes people who are the new celebrities. So on the Ashley Simpson show, it's the producer who's just as interesting to them, or the songwriter who's just as interesting to them. And really being able to shine a spotlight on the people behind the scenes is a great way to be able to bring in new talent. Because not everybody can be an artist, but if you don't have a great voice, if you're not great at playing an instrument, but you love music, being on the business side is a great opportunity. In terms of downloading, it's interesting how people have kind of the moral relationship with or ethical relationship with the idea of downloading. And what we see is that people very much differentiate between artists they'll download for free and artists they'll purchase. So if it's an up-and-coming artist like Arctic Monkeys, they'll think, well, I want them to be successful, I want them to do well, so I'm going to go buy their single. If it's Madonna, they'll think, Madonna has enough money, I can download her song from LimeWire, who does it hurt? There's very much a sense of no harm, no foul. With an up-and-coming artist, there's a sense that it can hurt them. With an already established artist, there's a sense of, they're never going to know. I think there's a couple things to that. I think one, music is so much more of an important part of how people define themselves and their self-expression. So they do have broader access to finding people with similar taste. I think you also see people experimenting a lot more with music. So with being able to either download a song for free or download a single for 99 cents, the cost of entry to experiment with a new genre is much lower. So instead of being someone who likes Metallica and you hang out with the people who like Metallica and that's your world and that's what you know, you can say, well, what about that Tim McGraw song? I like what he did with Nelly. What about that other song that he has? So if you look at people's iPod, it feels a little bit schizophrenic, where you might have someone with Jay-Z, Beyonce, the soundtrack to Chicago, Beastie Boys, Violent Femmes, Depeche Mode, and while it seems from an outside perspective that those are all wildly different genres and taste and kind of definitions of who that person is, for young people today and for consumers, there's much more of a mix-mash mentality of being able to have artists that tap into the specific mood that they're feeling. There's also a sense of people taking pride in having more sides to their own personality, and they look for music to help define not just their personality, but their mood. So one day they can be a little bit punky, another day they can be a little bit more poppy and a little bit more preppy. The next day they can be listening to Bob Dylan and Rolling Stones and feeling a little bit more important and cause-driven and socially aware. People still enjoy the act of going to see a concert because, one, it's something to do, and one of the cruel ironies of this generation is that as overscheduled as they are, there's still a sense of boredom of what am I going to do on Friday night. So concerts do offer that. They also offer a sense of community. So it's such a pre-selected group of people who like a similar artist, and again, for a group that defines themselves largely through the music that they like, that is very much of value to them. I think one of the biggest things for this generation, though, is that, again, there is a little bit of a sense of boredom. So for a group that doesn't sit down and listen to an entire album, going and listening to one artist throughout a night is something that feels a little bit dry to them. So there's less of an appreciation for the experience of listening to an artist's body of work. And so that's why tours like the Warped Tour or Lollapalooza, where there are different artists within a show, they respond to a little bit more. It's the ADD generation. One of the most important trends that we're seeing is the idea of kind of the new politics, that this is a generation that for many, the first presidential candidate they vote for won the popular vote, didn't win the election. They see lobbyists. They feel that government can be bought and bribed. This is a group that doesn't really have a lot of faith in the idea of democracy. They see that large corporations can make more of a difference in the world than the government. So for them, the way that they want to make a difference in the world is more through what they buy and celebrities they support and brands that they purchase versus who they vote for. So the idea of having a social cause is so important for this generation, because if push comes to shove and you're deciding between two artists or two concerts or two CDs, people tend to gravitate toward the one that gives back to the community and that has a portion of the proceeds going to a cause that tries to make the world a better place.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. It's nice to see a shift of people just being better people and more of a social responsibility. Having said that, people want to be socially responsible, but in a way that's easy for them. So we call it activism light, that it's, I'll click on this email if another company will donate $1. I'll go to this concert if a portion of the proceeds go to support a cause. Are they going to go out and canvass and have people sign petitions? Probably not, but it's a generation that really values the power of money. So they're going to have their consumer decisions based more on giving back. Merchandise is an interesting area because it tends to be moving a little bit more toward the digital or the customized, and the vintage. So instead of buying a t-shirt at a concert, you might customize an old one. You might buy one at a thrift store. You might create your own shirt. Things like ringtones, I think, are replacing a lot of the merchandise that you used to buy at a concert. It used to be, if you wanted to be able to kind of brand yourself with the brand of an artist, you would buy a concert t-shirt or you would buy a calendar. Now you buy a ringtone, you buy a screen to put on your screensaver. The interesting thing about ringtones is that it's such a perfect confluence of utility and also branding. So people might want to have a specific ringtone because it says something about who you are. And again, getting back to that idea of young consumers defining themselves through the music that they like and listen to. But it also provides a utility, so that if you're with your friends, someone's cell phone rings, you know that it's your cell phone ringing and not your friends. This generation has a much different relationship with ownership of entertainment and ownership just of products in general. One 23-year-old woman or girl was saying to us that she was all excited she had bought her first car, and her mom said, no, you didn't. You leased it. For her, leasing a car is just as much a sense of ownership. But for older generations, leasing it means you're just borrowing it. You don't have that same relationship to it. And we see that with entertainment as well, that there is a sense that formats change so much that and also just wanting to be able to experiment with different artists, different genres of music. So the idea of being able to kind of lease music versus owning it is also very interesting to them because it gives them broader access. And there isn't that sense of needing to really own it as long as you have access to it. Mm-hmm. Having said that, there are times when if it's really your favorite artist and you want to have the liner notes and you want to have the pictures on the jewel case and you want to have it sitting on a shelf somewhere as an identifier that you feel a connection to that artist, then that is when people want to buy music and have it actually physically. The idea of customizing one's room with posters and tear-outs from magazines is still something that's very much alive, that for many, their bedroom is really their space. It's the ultimate MySpace page that they like to customize. So posters are still interesting, especially editorial shots from magazines are interesting as well. I think one thing that's important for this generation and for both Gen X and Gen Y is that they're looking for someone to be their lifestylist. So they're looking for someone to say, if you like this music, you would like this celebrity, you would like this movie, you would like this TV show. So being able to look at music as part of a larger entertainment landscape and be able to direct consumers to new music artists they should be paying attention to, as well as brands that they should be paying attention to, and really taking more of a 360-degree view of who your consumer is and how your music fits into that landscape.
Great.
We saw, we went to see Danger Mouse speak the other day, and one thing I thought was so interesting was that he was talking about why they dress up as the characters, and he said it was because they didn't want people seeing like what necklace they were wearing and what belt they were wearing and what shoes they were wearing and then going out and getting it because that's what they didn't want that responsibility of being their lifestylist. And there was something about that seemed so authentic and cool that I hope we do see people get back to that.